I'm going to be talking to you from NG2 to Vue, and it's just a basic, basic talk about my experience learning Angular and learning Vue as a junior developer. My name is Josh. I'm a junior developer at the lab. I work with one of the co-organizers here, and I just moved to NYC like a month ago. It's from Nashville, so and it's been a nice transition. It's been really enjoyable. But I'll go ahead and get into my talk. So as a junior developer, or just as a developer in general, being able to learn quickly and efficiency is kind of one of the biggest parts about being good at your job or good at the projects that you're working on, right? And so being able to like pick up new stuff and use it is something that we should be trying to do inside of our jobs and outside of our jobs, right? And so, yes. So I'll go ahead and start with my learning experience with Angular 2. And did anyone else here attend a software development bootcamp? All right, so like everyone. So I remember like in my software development bootcamp, you go through, you learn vanilla JavaScript, and then you learn jQuery. And then I remember on the last day that we had finally migrated everything from jQuery to jQuery. Our instructor comes in and he's like, tomorrow we are going to be learning Angular. And I'm like, all right, this sounds pretty cool. Angular, pretty awesome, right? Google makes it, like it's got to be pretty fun. It's got to be pretty cool. It's got a cool name. So I was like pretty excited. And he ended it with the phrase, Angular is just JavaScript, so don't worry about that. Don't worry about anything, right? Because Angular is just JavaScript, you guys are going to get it. You're JavaScript queens now, so you should be good to go, right? But when we come in the next day, Angular is just JavaScript? No. Angular is anything but just JavaScript, right? So when we first started learning Angular, this is before the Angular CLI was out, so a lot of the stuff and a lot of like the architecture, you kind of had to do yourself, right? So you're going through an Angular tutorial, and then all of a sudden, the Angular tutorial mentions this thing called Webpack, right? Webpack, once again, sounds really cool, sounds really fun. I think that Facebook or somebody makes it, right? So it should be pretty cool and pretty easy to use, right? So you think that there's going to be like 20 minutes, and then you're going to get your Webpack and big up, and then you're going to be good to go, right? Wrong, right? Because Angular, because Webpack is not easy, and most of the solutions that you're going to find on Stack Overflow regarding Webpack are going to be just somebody else's Webpack config that they've been copy pasting for the last 2 years, and so and nobody really has any answers as to why they do things the way they do or how it's supposed to be set up, right? So, after a couple of days of messing around with Webpack, you finally get rid of all the console errors and all that kind of good stuff. And then, if you're a good Angular 2 person, eventually you're going to want to have your application do something, like maybe grab some information from somewhere else, right? So, as a bootcamp graduate, I feel like you get pretty good with like making cross-service call or making HTTP calls at different places, right? But when you start going through the HTTP client or the HTTP module in Angular, you see this like weird word that says like .subscribe, right? And I remember like the first time I saw .subscribe, I was like, I don't know what the heck this is. And so I asked my boss, I was like, what is this .subscribe? And he's like, oh, it's observables. And I was like, I don't know what observables are. And it ended up, like 2 days of trying to figure out what it is, like ending with, like a 2-hour-long session at my office about what observables are, right? And so Webpack, observables, they're both kind of barriers to entry for a junior developer trying to learn a big framework, right? So, after you get the observables down and you get kind of Webpack down, then like you feel like you've made this module, right? You've made this awesome code that's going to do something, and then like you go to your site and your project, and then all of a sudden like nothing is there, right? So after conquering the Webpack milestone and then the observables milestone, you're trying to include this module, and you end up realizing that you end up having to learn about this crazy thing in Angular called dependency injection. And dependency injection is never fun, and it's one of Angular's better parts, but it's also like it's a little bit difficult to wrap your head around, especially as a junior developer or somebody without a lot of experience moving to boot camp, right? Now that being said, a lot of these architectural decisions were made by people that know a lot more about coding than I do, and know a lot more about coding than a lot of us do. And so even though you have to go through these different things, in learning. As a junior developer, I found myself, trying to jump through these hurdles and trying to learn and trying to be more efficient, right? And so those are kind of some of the difficulties that I found when I was learning Angular. In addition, one of the nice things about Angular is that Angular has kind of like the Angular way for how you do things, right? So even though, and the Angular way is another one of those roadblocks that you kind of have to jump over as a junior developer. You have to figure out how, and you have to learn how Angular does things and why Angular does, not necessarily why Angular does things, but Angular will always attempt to answer the questions that it feels that you might have. And even though sometimes like you don't know the why, it lets you focus on the how. And focusing on the how as a junior developer is something that kind of lets you build confidence in your decisions and build confidence in the way that you're writing code, which I feel like is one of the big positives as a junior trying to learn Angular, even though the learning curve can be a little bit steep, right? So the Angular way may not be how you want to do it, but it definitely lets you focus on the why as opposed to the how. Now, after there had to be a Vue pun, so like it was mandatory. So after learning Angular for a couple of weeks in my job, I decided in a little bit of my free time to kind of maybe try starting to learn Vue, right? So, with Vue, you can kind of go in and, I don't know, so, oh, whoops, that got out of the way. But anyways, so when I first started learning Angular, my instructor said that Angular is just JavaScript, right? And we all know that that's a lie. But, we all know that that's a lie, right? So as I went through Vue, I recalled back to what my instructor had said about Vue or about Angular being just JavaScript, and I was like, I heard that about Angular, I heard that about React, and I'm not going to get fooled this time when I'm learning Vue. It's not just JavaScript. I know it's going to be a lot more difficult than that. So, however, as the more and more I looked at Vue code, I found out that Vue is just JavaScript almost. As a fresh-faced bootcamp grad, I don't feel like I could have approached an Angular project and kind of understood, reasoned about the code very easily, right? However, I felt like the first couple of code samples that I saw that were Vue, it was very, very easy for me to reason about. I feel like a lot of the syntax is very clean and easy to read, and it's very simple. And one of the nice things about having a simple API when you're learning something new is that it gives you a lot more confidence in your code, and you feel a lot stronger as you're kind of going through and learning the ropes of things. And so Vue's syntax makes it very simple and very easy and very efficient for you to kind of do those things as a junior developer. So it allows us as junior developers or bootcamp grads to quickly make something that looks good and like you can feel good about, right? Now, one of the nice things about Angular is that a lot of the questions you're going to have are already been answered for you. So you never have to worry about what kind of HTTP library you're going to use or what kind of library you're going to use to do whatever, right? Because Angular already has answered those questions for you. However, as a Vue developer, somebody learning Vue, as your application grows from that to-do app or whatever you decide is your Vue learning project, a lot of the times you're going to have to struggle with the question of which library do I use, or which blank do I use, and why do I do this, right? And as a junior developer, that can be a little bit taxing, right? JavaScript decision fatigue is definitely something I feel, if you worked in JavaScript for any given amount of time, then you know that it's something that you deal with on a regular basis, right? And so, but the thing is that Vue doesn't have an opinion about what you do, or as we say, you do Vue, right? You do it however you want to, or any way that you want to. But the nice thing about that, so it has very little out of the box, so you get to make a lot of more decisions. And so as you go through and you have to make those decisions, it helps you to kind of to grate your teeth a little bit and like learn a little bit more about the why, as opposed to if you're going through Angular, you're focusing more on the how. And so I feel that like those compare and contrast, those contrasting learning experiences kind of help round out can help make you a more well-rounded developer. Okay, cool. So a summary of Vue is that it's pretty lightweight and it's simple, allowing a junior developer to kind of feel good about the code that they write, but it doesn't make a lot of decisions for you. And so sometimes you get caught up in like the trivial architecture or library choices that you might encounter as your Vue app continues to grow. So in summary, Vue is pretty easy to pick up, but it's hard to architect larger projects without experience. Angular is a little bit more difficult to pick up, but once your project begins to grow into something that contains business logic and all that kind of good stuff, it allows you to kind of quickly implement new code, new useful code. But overall, like learning new technologies, frameworks, paradigms, languages is something that all of us should be trying to do. And so anything that kind of expands your horizons is a positive experience. And that is it. Does anybody have any questions? So the question is how much help do the frameworks kind of give you out of the box? So I would say that with Angular, there's a lot that comes with it. So you don't have to worry about like which HTTP client you're going to be using, or like which kind of like libraries you're going to be using. Whereas with Vue, it kind of just focuses on that view, on that presentational layer. Whereas I feel like within an Angular app, there's going to be a lot more parts with you and just out of the box that will help you like deal with business logic. Whereas Vue just purely focuses on the view straight out of the box. The question was, do you have to use Webpack out of the box with Angular? If you use the Angular CLI, it has like a Webpack configuration already for you, so you don't have to worry about doing anything yourself. And the one that comes out of the box is pretty good. And yeah, so like on my current project that I'm working on in my company, we just use the default Webpack configuration, and it's worked just fine for us so far. Ran into no problems. So you don't have technically you have to use it, but it comes with it. It comes with the Angular CLI now. Whereas I don't think it used to. Is Vue object-oriented? Yes, I mean, I would say that it is. It's JavaScript, so like I think that by default it's object-oriented, and right? I mean,
JavaScript can be functional too.
Yeah, but I mean, out of the box, you're gonna get object-oriented, right? It's gonna be object-oriented out of the box. But yeah, I don't know if I have I don't mind that it's object-oriented. I'm a big fan of object-oriented programming, anyways. So, yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. So like, I don't mind it at all. So I don't mind that Vue is that Vue could be considered object oriented. Although sometimes if you're just focusing on the presentational layer, I feel like a lot of the times like when you're dealing with like stuff that's like object oriented or functional, like you're dealing with more of like the business logic side of things, and so I don't necessarily know if it's analogous 150%, but yeah, I don't mind that it is, and yeah, so yeah. So what do I mean by hard to architect larger projects versus being easy to architect larger projects? I think that just because Angular kind of has the Angular way or the opinion about how to do something, it makes it so that way as it grows, it's kind of like how things are supposed to kind of look when they get big. Whereas with Vue, because like you're just initially getting that Vue layer, so to speak, a lot of like the other smaller architectural decisions are going to be things that you're going to have to worry about. And so that's where it becomes. I feel that Vue is easy to architect as long as like you're building a shack. But if you're trying to build like a skyscraper, then like it becomes a lot more difficult. Awesome.